Now, this morning, we're putting the spotlight on Tobago politics as we discuss governance issues and new developments. And so joining us this morning is the PNM Tobago Council political leader, Mr. Ancil Dennis. Mr. Dennis, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us on Now.
Good morning to you. Good morning to our listeners and viewers. It's a pleasure to be here as usual.
Pleasure to have you on a Zoom with us, but of course in our presence, because I know that you have been very busy, Mr. Dennis, as it relates to the local government elections. So I could imagine that you're a bit tired, but I do appreciate you joining us this morning just to share a bit about what's happening as it relates to Tobago. First up, I just want to find out from your point of view. I mean, you're the former Chief Secretary. You're now in charge of the PNM Tobago Council. Just tell us some of the issues or challenges that you're seeing in Tobago at this time.
Well, Tobago is grappled by a number of issues and challenges at this point in time. The latest being this ridiculous, contemptuous voice recording that has been circulating in the public domain. 2 weeks now, today's day 14, since the people of Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago by extension have heard that voice recording, and it's actually circulating beyond our shores across the Caribbean, as far as New York. Persons have been communicating with me concerning this voice recording. So that is the main issue at this point in time, that is grappling and grabbing the attention of the people of Tobago and the country by extension.
Yeah. Mr. Dennis, can you share the details of the voice recording for those of us who may not know exactly what you're referring to?
Well, basically, there is a voice recording circulating just over a minute long, where Tobagonians are clearly hearing the voices of our now Chief Secretary, not the former one, this current Chief Secretary, and the Secretary of Education, planning and conspiring to utilize state resources in the form of THA jobs to facilitate their personal and political agenda. To be more specific, it's basically those individuals talking about hiring or having hired persons within the THA to carry out PR and propaganda on behalf of their political party. And this is tantamount to corruption. It is tantamount to activities that are contrary to the laws of Trinidad and Tobago, specifically based on my own opinion, the Integrity in Public Life Act and possibly the Prevention of Corruption Act.
I also want to ask as well, Mr. Dennis, I know that these allegations are serious, but I was just wondering how it differs from maybe the allegations that came against the PNM, especially when you were Chief Secretary, because I think normally whenever there's a sitting party or a sitting group, they are always faced with this challenge of allegations of corruption. And so how does the corruption that allegedly the THA is facing now differs from what the PNM may have also had to answer to when they were in power?
Well, allegations are just that, allegations. You would know that PNM has been accused of all kinds of things. People are very much familiar with the zipline situation, and I want to use that as an example because I believe that this Chief Secretary and the rest of his team were able to zipline their way into office in the THA. They utilized that issue as a point of misinformation to the people of Tobago, alleging corruption on the part of the previous political leader, and even myself and other members of the executive at the time. Corruption allegations were leveled. The now Chief Secretary even mounted a platform promising to refer the zipline matter to the Integrity Commission, the police, the DPP, etc. And to date, I am not aware of any formal report made by the Chief Secretary or anybody else concerning that matter to the police. The only matter that is engaging any authority at this time has to do with the suing of that company by the THA. And of course, there is also a matter before the courts concerning defamation brought by the former PNM political leader against the current chief secretary based on those allegations. Those allegations, of course, were made without an iota of evidence, no evidence whatsoever to back up the claims, and therefore no report was made to any authority concerning that matter. But here we are now, not just with allegations, but we are hearing for ourselves the voices of the chief secretary and the secretary of education, and perhaps there were other members of the executive at that meeting planning corruption, planning to undertake an illegal activity, planning to engage in activities against the interests of Tobago and Tobagonians. So this is not just an allegation. That voice recording prevents irrefutable evidence of the plans and the activities, actions prior, and actions that they intend to continue with as it relates to corruption. And I think that is a stark difference. Again, allegations are simply that, allegations, and anybody could get up and allege. I've heard even in the past this very administration talking about billions missing from the THE. But guess what? They have been in office 18, 19 months now. And to date, they have not been able to produce any evidence to back their claims. They have not been able to make any reports that I know about to the police concerning corruption. And therefore, we have to assume that it was simply talk, it was simply allegations aimed at hoodwinking the people of Tobago to get into office.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Dennis, as you mentioned, that zip lining, you said that they were able to zip line their way into office. And of course, they would have departed from the PDP, so then they're no longer members. Now, there were a lot of people calling for fresh elections as a result of this. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, we have been calling for fresh elections for some time now, even before we got to this voice recording. So yes, there's a need for fresh elections, but not because of the voice recording. There was a need for fresh elections since they decided to resign from the PDP and claim then to be independent. And we are seeing now that even that was a very treacherous and dishonest action on their part, and not just the chief secretary in this case, but all of them claim to be independent. And here we are now in a situation where they can practice and demonstrate their independence by calling out the chief secretary and the secretary of education, by asking them to do the honorable thing to step aside. And we have had silence. Just imagine that, an issue that has far-reaching consequences, an issue that has gone far and wide. This administration, not only the conspirators, not only the persons whose voices we heard in the recording, but all of them have chose to remain silent for 14 days concerning this issue. And therefore that demonstrates that they are not independent at all. It demonstrates that they are about their own self-interest and not the interests of the people of Tobago.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Dennis, I know that people have been alleging who are the voices that we're hearing in the audio clip. Are you certain that it is, the people that you would have mentioned before?
Well, those individuals have been in public life for more than 5 years now. I think the first time I heard the chief secretary's voice in the public space might have been around the year 2015. And the secretary of education as well has been around for that period of time as well. And therefore, I am convinced, and I think everybody in Tobago and Trinidad and Tobago who have been hearing these voices for so long, I think all of us are convinced that the voices are in fact that of the chief secretary and the secretary of education. So I have absolutely no doubt that that is a recording representative of those voices. And while we may hear suggestions that it might be some concocted recording, pulling several clips together. I'm even hearing talk about the possibility of AI. To me, that is foolishness. That is rubbish. The recording, based on what I have heard, is in fact a genuine recording. And the voice that I heard, the voices that I heard are in fact the voices of those individuals in question.
All right. Now, Mr. Dennis, I know that let's take it back a bit to the 14-1 defeat following the THA elections. I wanted to know, because you would have mentioned that fresh elections that you believe needs to take place now that the members who are sitting in the THA have exited the PDP, that ticket that they ran on. And so if you were given another chance to do it differently, what sort of things would you implement if you were to become the chief secretary and another PNM party is elected?
Well, I will simply maintain the same priorities that the PNM had while we were in office. We prioritized the interests of the people of Tobago. We prioritized agriculture when we started that farmland development program aimed at putting Tobago lands in the hands of farmers to ensure that they were able to occupy those lands and produce. We will prioritize, of course, the tourism sector, where we started that arrangement to ensure that we improve customer service on the island, where we develop relationships with all the stakeholders across the sector aimed at bringing traffic, more traffic to the island of Tobago, even on the domestic level. We'll prioritize ports, a number of facilities that we started under our watch and no longer continuing at this time. We have a major project such as the Bacolet Indoor Sporting Complex, a project that is much needed by the people of Tobago, which we started, is halted at this time. The Goodwood Pavilion is also halted. Another very important sporting project, the Charlottesville Community Center, a facility that has been requested by that community for some time now, which started under us, that has been halted. Of course, the administration currently is complaining about a lack of resources, a lack of money, and that kind of stuff, when in fact they have spent Tobago's entire development budget on roads that, in my opinion, were unnecessary at this time, especially in circumstances where Trinidad contractors, particularly contractors from South and Central Trinidad, were hired to do these works. So we will simply put priority on the people of Tobago. We will ensure that all Tobago's resources work to the benefit of the people of Tobago and in the interest of all Tobagonians.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Dennis, while you want to continue on the mandate or the manifesto, I would say rather, of the PNM when they were in the party, are there any sort of new developments that maybe we can look forward to?
Well, definitely, of course. I've always said that Tobago's mainstay at this point in time, in terms of its economy, will be the tourism and the agriculture sector. And it's just a matter of prioritizing those sectors, particularly in the tourism sector. There's a need for us to attract further investment in that sector. Tobago, like yesterday, needs a major resort on the island. Of course, we had the opportunity for Sandals some time ago. That fell through again due to the treacherous actions of politicians who are now in office in the THA. Tobago needs its marina. Tobago needs its airport, which is on the way thanks to this central government. Tobago needs other facilities that are geared towards our tourism development. In terms of agriculture, Tobago needs TADCO, which is a company that was started under us, to revert to its original mandate, which was about improving the agriculture sector on the island, which was about creating opportunities for farmers to produce more, so that we can have an arrangement where the state, through its intervention, can ensure that we source produce from these farmers and get it into the marketplace, whether in Tobago, Trinidad, or even the region, or even on international markets, right? So for us, it was really about prioritizing those areas and ensure that we really put the people of Tobago first and foremost, and that is what the PNM is about. Of course, another stark difference has to do with the stability and the organization of the PNM, which I'm sure Tobagonians are now appreciating and understanding the importance of what the PNM brought to the island of Tobago, given the fact that we have experienced 18 terrible months of instability, of chaos, of a lack of benefit to the people of Tobago, and simply a situation where Tobago people are not the priority of
No,
this
Mr. Dennis.
current THE administration.
No,
So
Mr. Dennis,
yes,
I
in
know that.
fact,
Mr. Dennis, can you hear
we
me?
are doing our homework. We continue to develop our
Mr. Dennis?
platform, and really and truly, the PNM's focus is about developing the
Mr.
people of
Dennis, can you hear
Tobago
me?
and
Hello,
placing their
Mr.
interests
Dennis?
first. Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? I wasn't sure that you could hear me before. I think you
Yes, I'm
lost me there
hearing
for a
you.
minute. Hearing me now? Okay. I
Yes.
also wanted to interject here only because I know that there's also that conversation about Tobago autonomy. And I know that one member of the PDP in particular was actually rooting for that, especially while they were campaigning. And I wanted to hear the PNM's thoughts on that. Is Tobago autonomy something that may be discussed, that might be a possibility?
Tobago autonomy is something we should have achieved a while ago. A bill, the last bill that came from the parliament, I believe, was possibly the closest that we came to achieving autonomy. Of course, unfortunately, that very good bill, which allowed Tobago to have, for the first time, real lawmaking powers, that allowed Tobago to have additional administrative, executive, and legislative responsibilities. That bill, unfortunately, was railroaded by individuals who are now in office, right? So, of course, the PNM, both in Tobago and in Trinidad, believes in Tobago having more autonomy. Actually, it's a critical part of our development, right? We cannot develop as we should as an island if we are unable to make laws for the good governance and the improvement and the development of the people of Tobago. The railroading of that bill also robbed Tobago additional resources. We stood to benefit an additional $1.5 billion as part of the Tobago House of Assembly allocation to the people of Tobago. We could have benefited a situation where currently the law allows the THA to draft what we call assembly bills. And then those bills must go to the cabinet, and then cabinet would peruse them and decide if they should go to parliament. And if it gets to parliament, it becomes a matter for the parliament to deal with. And if approved, it becomes assembly law.
Yeah.
And to date, the THA, the people of Tobago, have not been able to benefit from that. The
Yeah.
bill that was railroaded by individuals who are now in office allowed a situation where the Tobago legislature comprise, of course, the representatives and the president. So that would have placed us in a situation where there was no need for the parliament's intervention, but the legislators on the island of Tobago could have simply approved our bills, and once given assent to by the president, then those bills would have become laws for the island of Tobago,
Now, Mr. Dennis, I
similarly to
have to
how
interject here as well. Mr.
the
Dennis?
country in the parliament
Mr. Dennis,
makes
can
its
you hear me?
laws.
Hello, Mr. Dennis, I have to interject you. Apologies for that. I have one quick question because we're unfortunately out of time. I'm giving you 30 seconds. Just some words of advice or anything that you can tell the young people of Tobago in terms of what the PNM may be able to do for them. Just 30 seconds quickly.
Well, young people, I would say that there are tremendous opportunities still available due to the PNM's policies over the years. We have support for young people in terms of tertiary education that is available. We also have support in terms of vocational skills training program for those who may not be inclined to the academics, opportunities in terms of agriculture, opportunities in terms of business development through the business development unit as it relates to grant funding and loan funding for young persons who may require support to get into business. So we have always catered for young people over the years. It is just unfortunate that some of those policies may not be working as it should right now due to a lack of priority given
Right,
to
and I'm
them
going to
by this
pause.
current
And unfortunately,
administration.
Mr.
So
Dennis,
the
I have to pause
PNM
you right
continues
there.
to stand by
Mr.
the
Dennis, you
side of
hearing
young
me?
people.
Hello? I'm going to have to pause you right there because we're out of time. But let me thank you so much for joining us this morning. I think that we got a wealth of information. And so it's a lot for the leaders to think about and see how they can implement this, of course, for the betterment of Tobago. So thank you, Mr. Dennis, so much for joining us this morning.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure being here.
Have a good one. Get some rest.
Definitely.
And that was the PNM Tobago Council political leader, Mr. Ancil Dennis, just sharing some challenges and, of course, some solutions to the problems as it relates to Tobago. Here on the Now Morning Show, we're going to take a break and be right back. Stay with us.